to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't think he knew you were.
Do we have any agenda items to be changed this evening?
There's no amendments.
Pardon?
No amendments.
No amendments. Okay, move on. Public comments. This is time we hear public comments from the public on items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone, I have no cards, anyone who wishes to address us this evening? Seeing none, we'll move to the to the consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Please vote. That motion passes 5-0. Let's see, hang on a second, I'm missing one. Whoa. Okay. Departmental. Yeah, who's speaking on departmental items?
That's my pleasure, Mr. President. Thank you. The item before you is to consider an expenditure of funds from the Russell Fisher Trust and subsequently on your council agenda, an amendment to the professional service agreement with LSSI, amending the total compensation for the Russell Fisher Business Collection Business Coordinator. As you'll recall, this change to compensation was brought before you at our budget meetings and subsequently approved by you with our 2014-2015 budget in June of this year. This expenditure and amendment is being proposed after a year of operation due to the success of the Russell Fisher Business Collection and the increased workload, programming, and professional level of effort required for this position. Salary survey was conducted prior to the budget adoption, and the compensation is in line with the survey results. Staff is requesting you authorize the expenditure from the Russell Fisher Trust for total overall compensation, including overhead, not to exceed $79,500 per year as approved in the 2014-2015 budget. As I mentioned, a subsequent request to amend the contract with LSSI is a consent item on the regular council agenda tonight. And as a side note, I should also mention that our existing business coordinator has moved to a new position, and LSSI is currently in process of recruiting a new business coordinator.
Comments?
I have one.
Mr. Kilgee?
Yeah, Richard, now, this individual is an employee of LSSI, is that correct?
That is
Or
correct.
will be, because the one that's currently there is going to be moved up the ladder, whatever happens there, and they're going to get somebody new for this.
That is
And
correct.
that new person will be an employee of LSSI.
That is also correct. That's why we required the amendment to the LSSI
Any
agreement.
changes in the hourly that this individual is going to work? I know there's an increased workload or anything, or is the hourly-
It is a full-time position, so that is in line with what the existing position
Okay. That's all I
hours
have.
were.
Any other comments?
Move to authorize the expenditure from the Russell Fisher Trust.
We have a motion and a second for the item. Please vote. That passes 5-0. Any comments from legal staff? Comments?
No comments?
Comments from the trustees? Seeing none, we will adjourn.
Call this meeting of the Camarillo Sanitary District Board to order and ask the record to reflect that all board members are present. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes?
Public comments. I don't have any cards. Is there anybody who'd like to speak to the Camarillo Sanitary District Board of Directors on an item that's not on the agenda? Seeing no one come forward, we'll move to the consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second.
The motion and a second. Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. There are no departmental items, so comments from staff?
I don't have any. Tom, do you have any?
Comments from board members? Mr. Morgan and I attended the CASA meeting in Monterey. It was a very interesting meeting. I learned quite a bit, and I'll try to get a written report to you within the next 5 or 6 days. It's not going to be by Friday, I know that.
Everything that was at that meeting, you can dial into CASA, and it's all there. So what we did at those meetings will be on the, you can call into their website and you'll pick it up. The first day was more interesting than the second, I thought. But it was a good meeting.
It was a good meeting. Okay, no other comments? The meeting is adjourned.
I'd like to call the Camarillo Successor Agency meeting for August 27th to order, please, and let the record reflect that all the directors are present. Amendments to this agenda?
No amendments.
Okay. Public comments for the successor agency? Anybody out there? Okay. We'll move down to item 3. It's a consent calendar.
Move the approval of consent calendar?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That does pass unanimously. Okay. Any comments from the staff at this particular point?
I don't have any, and I don't believe Ronnie or Dave do.
Any comments from the board members on this item? No? Okay, with that, we'll adjourn. All right. I'd like to call the regular city council meeting for August 27th to order, please, and let the record reflect that all council members are present. Amendments to this agenda, are there any amendments to this one?
No amendments?
Okay, that gets us down, no presentation. Let's get down to consent calendar items.
Move the approval of consent calendar with a comment.
Your Honor, I would like to ask that item I be pulled and discussed.
Where would you like to put that, Mr. Little?
I assume it'd be under
City manager?
City manager?
Public Works, I guess.
Hang on, let me find you.
That would be Public Works.
Public Works, you want to put that at the end? Yeah, why don't we put that at the end of that? We'll do the
Okay.
first one first, and then we'll get to item, it's I?
Aye.
Item I.
And then I do have one question.
Anything else?
I do have a question on just a clarification on one item, if I could just ask.
Why don't you go ahead and do that?
Okay, that's on item P, the resolution for approving plans and specifications for, to notice for bids for the annual overlay program and the annual slurry. There's, I believe, $8 million we're, in general round terms, we're talking about. And what percentage or what amount is being considered to be for the reconstruction or the resurfacing versus the slurry? Do you have any numbers there?
Just in round numbers, a majority of it is for overlay program, so about between 7 to 7.5 million would be for the overlay, and a little over half a
So
million
it's-
would be for the slurry.
Very well tilted towards the reconstruction.
Correct.
That's fine, thank you.
Your Honor, I'd like to also have item G discussed, and also thank Charlotte for her long and educational email.
Yes, I've missed that over the years.
Just food for thought.
I couldn't figure out what you did that day when you were writing this thing.
Anything else from me, Ray? Okay, I think there was a motion, I believe. Was there a second on that? Let's the item
G,
I? Is that right?
oh, I first. I thought we
Aye.
did I. No.
No, Mr. Little still has one that needs to be discussed. Do you
I'd
wanna
like
redo
G
the
discussed,
motion?
yes.
You want to redo your motion?
Oh, I'd like to have item G pulled for discussion.
Okay. Where would you like to put that?
Public Works?
Public Works.
Okay, that will be right after item I. Item G. Okay. Okay.
So I will
Anything else?
second the motion if it's to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item I and G, which are both going to Public Works.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Please vote. That passes unanimously. Okay, that gets down to Public Works, and let's do A first. It's the professional service agreement, the city's water conservation program. Mr. Fox, would that be you tonight?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
Okay.
And this is to consider a professional service agreement with Green Media Creations to help us move forward with our water conservation program. The City Council did declare a Stage 2 drought emergency that we've been moving forward with public outreach to really have the community begin implementing provisions or measures beginning next week in September. And there's a number of conservation provisions that the Stage 2 drought emergency declares. And, of course, to make sure people in the community understand what that is, there was some public outreach that we provided. And even though that's not part of your action tonight, I want to take just a few moments to go over what we've done to try and get the word out so people are aware of what we need them to help us accomplish over the next several months. This month, starting with the round of utility bills that go out during August, so a couple weeks ago as the utility bills started going out to our service area. And I do want to emphasize that all of these measures and the items we're talking about tonight really apply to the service area that the city serves water to, which is predominantly the center part of the city, the 2/3 of the city from the west end to Cayugas Creek, as a general description. Again, actually about 60% of the city we serve, and then there's other water districts that serve the remainder of the community. So the items I'm talking about tonight will apply to those that we provide direct water service to. We, in their water bills, have included a graph. So the normal water bill included an insert that had a sample graph that they will be seeing on their next future water bills for each month that will have goals showing what the higher water users need to do to achieve the water conservation goals that we want to accomplish. So that is one way to get information out. We also have a direct mailer that has gone to each customer or each account, identifying each of the provisions. We, in our municipal code, do have a list of various provisions a Stage 2 alert calls for, and we've gone through and identified what each of those are and what will be required. So, for example, which days of the week people are limited to watering, what hours of the day people are limited to watering, and so on. We also have on our website now the Stage 2 information, as well as links to other resources people can use to learn more about water conservation, such as the Be Water Wise site. And we've also provide direct mailers to some of our major water users and landscapers, figuring obviously that if we can get them to help us, we'll make a lot of headway in reducing water use. And then there's been a number, and will continue to be a number of city scene articles going out. We will also have continued outreach going forward to remind the community and update the community on our progress. But I also want to identify that in order to ensure that these provisions are that we're being successful as a community, Stage 2 does call for active enforcement, and that's really what we're looking for help with by Green Media Creations, is to provide the enforcement. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what enforcement means. The term can sometimes imply different ideas to people. For us, enforcement is really intended to be more of positive. People can think of enforcement as being negative. We're going to impose upon them. Ultimately, there could be fines issued. That isn't really our emphasis. Our emphasis is to be proactive and helpful, almost like ambassadors, water ambassadors. Our staff, as well as the consultant that we would hire, would be out in the community to help provide information to people to help them not only reduce water, but save in their water bills. And our experience has been in the past that they're received very positively. People appreciate the information, and in fact, in 2009, 2010, we had a similar enforcement effort that helped us achieve a 19% reduction in water. And through that effort, the way the municipal code identifies that we would eventually possibly find somebody is our first contact is really, again, to be helpful, to provide them with information. And then our second contact could result in a $100 fine, a third contact, a $200 fine, and then ultimately a $500 fine. We found that during the 2009-2010 effort, we only had a few dozen that went to the second round, where not even that, I should say, less than 10 that went to the second round where they could be fined. But we offered the alternative of a home water audit, where we would go in and help them identify how to reduce the use. And in every case, that was successful, and that helped them. And we did not levy one fine the last time, but again, we were still successful in a 19% reduction. That is the type of effort that we're looking for, again, is not to be heavy-handed, but to be helpful. And I want to emphasize that. And that's why we're recommending Green Media Creations to assist us with this. Is they're really partially a public relations firm. They do have an enforcement branch, and they have current contracts in cities nearby, and so they have experience, and they've been effective, again, really with more help than being heavy-handed. And so we feel they were good for meeting the type of approach we want to use. They have good experience. They have a very cost-effective approach as well. They're providing 20 hours a week, and that would be a varied hours, so they'd be early morning, late evening, weekends, just to really be out there different times to see if people are watering. May not even realize that their sprinklers are going off on days they're not supposed to, and so on. And the only way to know that is to be rotating on throughout. Watering occurs more than just the 40 hours of a normal work week, so we need them to be available at all hours, and they're willing to do that. So we feel very confident that they're a good firm to help us move forward with this, and are recommending that you award a contract that would be for $75,000 for them to provide the service during the course of the year. And I want to wrap up again, going off on a little bit of a tangent, but it's related, and just emphasize that the water conservation is an important topic right now. Water supply in general is an important topic. And water conservation is a very important tool that we need the community to help us with and move forward. But I want to assure the council and the community that we have a number of strategies that we're using to ensure that Camarillo, our service area, is in good hands, and that we will have the ability to at least serve the essential water needs. We also are looking at a new water source with a desalter. We're looking at, through recycled water, being able to provide additional water. So we have a good message to tell that is we don't have enough time tonight to get into, but we are proposing in the next, perhaps at the next council meeting or sometime soon, to bring a more detailed presentation forward to you to help explain all the things we're doing to ensure that we have a sustainable and reliable water supply for our service area. And I just wanted to touch on that because we've been getting a lot of inquiries as to how are we doing with water, and people with different levels of concerns, because they do hear some of the more dire stories that are occurring in other service areas in California, and I think we want to at least help people understand that we're what we're doing for Camarillo, and it's not something we're reacting to. It's something we've been working on for a while to not only prepare for a drought but prepare for the long term. So just wanted to note that would be some more information coming to you as well. But again, I'll wrap up by reiterating our recommendation that you do approve the contract before you tonight.
Any questions, Mr. Craven?
I think Mr. Little pulled it, but did you pull it?
No, I just...
Oh, Mrs. McDonald probably pulled it. Maybe she wants their question.
No.
Oh, no, this is a
I do
regular-
have a question.
This is an item.
It's a regular agenda item.
Oh, it's next. Okay, then I'll ask my question.
Anybody have a question?
Yeah, I did have a question. My question is, we're going to be user-friendly, we're going to go and talk to people, but if there are people who are constant abusers, we don't want to give them the idea that we're not going to enforce and give them. I mean, they're going to have to, at some point, come around and abide by the Stage 2 water rules, right?
Absolutely. Again, ultimately, the fines could be up to $500, which is consistent also with the mandate that the governor issued. I just want to caution that we had a very successful interaction with our community the last time we did this that fortunately resulted in no fines. And everybody did that was good news. The people in Camarillo rallied and they all did what we were asking.
Right.
Mr. Little, did you have a question?
Two questions. Number one, what is the 75,000, what time period does that cover?
This fiscal year. So it would take us through June of 2015.
And that's based on the 20 hours a week of...
That is correct. 20 hours a week, plus there are some ancillary efforts we need them to help us with.
Okay. And the other question is, have we ever used this firm before, or do we have recommendations from others who have used it?
We have not used them before, but there are other neighboring communities that gave good recommendations, and we also interviewed and were impressed by the staff that interviewed.
Thank you.
Mr. Morgan.
You know, we have talked about this before, but one of the things that I'm hitting in the public, and that I think we need to get the news media involved with us, like they did in Ventura, and said how good job they're doing it by having community get-togethers, and they're far behind us. And what we need to do is get this information, things that do constitute a violation or whatever, in here, or something, we need to get this into either news release or give it to the news media so they have everything and they can write it up. Everything you said, and with this here, you know, these items should be in the newspaper, should be given to them so they can write a true, complete story. That's all.
Your Honor, if I could just echo that, that's a good comment, and we are planning to do that, is to not only provide information to the media on the water conservation program, but again, as we bring forward information at the next meeting on the broader picture on water, we plan to request the media to provide a story on that as well.
Thank you.
And I have one suggestion, and it's not so much a question. Something that I've been thinking of that might help a lot of people who have lawn services. People come, you know, basically just mow the lawn versus the landscapers who go in and put it in. But perhaps having seminars to teach them a little bit about how to keep your landscape alive by following the rules, because you don't have to let everything die. You just need to learn how to water it. And making sure that all of those people understand the rules. So there may not be the homeowner, they may, you know, or the people that are taking care of the lawns. But I think it would be very helpful if we could find someone who could, you know, teach a class on how to, you know, how much water does a lawn really need to stay just barely green without, you know, using more water than you're supposed to. Because there really is a kind of an art to it, a science to it. And I think it would be very helpful.
In the early 90s, we did that.
We did.
Had classes for the
Early 90s, we did it.
landscapers. And I think-
City Scene was used, too, to help talk about that and tell them how they could do that.
Well, those goes more to the homeowners. I'm talking about the business, whom they may not even live here for that matter, but yeah, but they work here.
Tom,
Your
do you have
Honor, Your Honor, that's a very good comment, and that is something we are planning to do. It was something we did in 2009 and 10. The mailers that went out, actually, that was one of the industries we targeted, was the landscape maintenance businesses, and then we do hold seminars as well to help them understand some of the ways through managing the work they do and how they time the controllers that they can reduce water use.
Wonderful. Will that be a task of this agency, or will that come under someone else's?
That will be our responsibility. Either, we've done it both with our staff as well as with the consultant.
Okay.
anything else?
Move to authorize the city manager to sign the professional services agreement with Green Media Creations for an amount of $75,000.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. Okay, that gets them back to item I on the consent. I think that was Mr. Little. You had a question on that?
Yeah, I just would like, let me find the item here. As this is a result of us receiving money from the state
Correct.
for a variety of purposes,
Correct.
and this is part of the strings that is attached.
That's correct.
Okay, and are we going to be, do we do this in collaboration with others in the county, or this is ours alone?
This will be in collaboration. This is our share of that effort.
So the various cities or organizations that do this, yeah,
Your Honor, perhaps Lucy could, she's been involved with this and may have some more detail to shed on this.
Welcome, Lucy.
It is a collaborative effort because of the grant, how it's allocated is Ventura County-wide, but each individual agency that receives the grants has to be individually certified, and we're all applying separately, but using the same consultant to implement the project, the program.
Okay, thank you. Those are my
Anything
questions.
else? Okay. I'm going to make a motion to...
Move to adopt a resolution implementing a labor compliance program.
Second.
It's a motion to discuss. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. Okay, that gets us down to item G on the consent. Mr. Morgan, I think this was your...
That was mine. I want to bring up Charlotte's fun time. In your email, that was cool.
I didn't have anything to do with G.
What are we talking about?
The easement that was, okay, you had several different ones, but go
Something to
ahead.
do with J.
You were on the vacation?
Yep.
I was on a vacation on J,
Yeah.
not G.
Can you hit G, though? That's
Yeah, G, really quickly what this is, and it is probably good just to highlight something that was a ongoing multi-project, multi-agency effort, and that was to improve Lewis Road. Lewis Road obviously is, important access from the city out to the university, and with the growing university, the need for extra capacity. So the county actually, because Lewis Road south of Pleasant Valley, south of the city limit, goes out to the university, that's a county road, and then north of, once it gets into the city, Lewis Road becomes a state route. Both sections of road were widened, but the county took the lead and managed the project. They had to obtain right-of-way for the road improvements, and then they ultimately turned that right-of-way over to Caltrans inside the city limits to manage the state portion of it. One of the types of right-of-way that Caltrans requires is an airspace. So in the case where Lewis Road goes over the railroad tracks and over Dawson Drive, they need to have the ability to know that the bridge is, they have the air under the bridge, I guess. And so we're granting the easement for that airspace over Dawson Drive. Quite honestly, doesn't matter. It's not going to change anything as far as the physical way that everything works, but it's just to tie things up and wrap up the project so that the county can turn everything over to the state and have the state take possession of the improvements. So this is just a housekeeping item to wrap up the project. I just want to highlight, too, that we are wrapping up the sound wall and monument and landscaping as well along the west side of Lewis Road, which was a second effort, a second phase of work to further enhance the quality of the Lewis Road project. So again, multi-agency, working together with multiple projects for the benefit of that corridor.
I just never heard of airspace before in the time of building council. It's kind of a new thing to me. I thought, I got to let everybody hear this explained.
Mayor,
That's it.
Little?
I move approval of the
Second.
Any further discussion? Please vote. That passes unanimously. Okay, that gets down to item 7, community development. Resolution waiving permit fees, landscape conversion during the drought emergency. The staff who's going to take this will be Mr. Norman. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through a series of drought declarations and increasing water rates, there's been a heightening interest in landscape conversion to artificial turf and drought-tolerant designs. We receive an average of about 18 inquiries a month from homeowners who are interested in making such a conversion. And with the City Council approving the landscape and irrigation guidelines, it requires that a zone clearance be obtained, and a zone clearance is a minor plan check and permit for the conversion to artificial turf and drought-tolerant designs. Now, the cost of a zone clearance for a single-family home is $100 if the homeowner applies for the zone clearance, and $600 if the homeowner's contractor applies for the zone clearance. Plus, there would be a $53.84 plumbing permit if there is no backflow prevention device on the home's sprinkler system. Landscape conversion for commercial, industrial, or multifamily residential requires a landscape plan check with plans submitted by a landscape architect. There's a higher level of review for that. And that plan check fee is $1,435. Also, a plumbing permit would be required if there's no backflow device at the facility. The payment of zone clearance and plumbing permit fees is a significant disincentive towards proceeding with conversion plans. And most of those, especially the homeowners who are interested and have come to our counter inquiring about doing a conversion, have not returned with plans after learning of the required fees. The city encourages water conservation, as we just heard in a previous item this evening, while keeping the community attractive through well-maintained landscaping. The continued drought and further water use restrictions will create challenges for homeowners to keep their lawns green, as we know. The landscape and irrigation guidelines provide new options for the use of artificial turf and drought tolerant. In other words, southwestern landscape design themes is one option. And by encouraging the conversion of traditional landscaping to more drought-conscious alternatives, this will assist the city in maintaining its high aesthetic value while conserving water and saving homeowners and business owners money. The payment of permit fees has become a roadblock for many homeowners wanting to convert their landscaping. Our recommendation, therefore, is to adopt a resolution waiving City of Camarillo zone clearance, landscape plan check, and plumbing permit fees for the conversion of existing landscaping to artificial turf and drought-tolerant landscaping themes during a city-declared drought emergency. That concludes my report.
Any questions for Mrs. McDonald?
Just to clarify, what is officially a city-declared drought emergency? Is it one of the certain stages, any of the stages?
Yeah, it is when we declare a stage 1 or stage 2 drought alert per the municipal code.
So even the stage 1, I guess, is the trigger then, so. Okay.
Correct.
Are we,
Mr. Little, do you have a question?
have we declared that, stage 1?
Stage 2?
We had a stage 1 into effect until about a month ago. You declared a stage 2.
Okay, so we've got that clear.
I think that's when you were on vacation that time. Or you
I
missed
haven't
it.
been on vacation. What are you talking about? I just want to say that I feel somewhat vindicated with my vote against the permit fee increases on this thing. So I think it shows that there is a need to be more cautious about what we increase and why and so forth. So.
Mayor, for
Yes.
the record, the permit fees for plan check for zone clearance had not been increased in the last go-around.
I would move to adopt a resolution waiving City of Camarillo zone clearance, landscape plan check, and plumbing permit fees for the conversion of existing landscaping to artificial turf and, I'm going to say and/or drought-tolerant landscaping themes during a city-declared drought emergency.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. That passes unanimously. Okay, let's get down to item 13, new business. Let's see if we can do Mr. City Manager tonight.
I do not have any comments at this point, and I
comments.
don't know if the executive staff does.
Anybody else have any comments? All right, Mr. City Attorney, anything?
No comments.
No comment. Okay, let's get down to City Council comments. Mr. Morgan, we'll start with you tonight.
Can you go skip me for a second?
Mr. Little, would you like to?
Yeah, I was going out of town for part of this month, so I did attend the Camarillo Ranch Foundation board meeting on August 6th, and I also attended the one yesterday we had with the city manager and Mr. Morgan and myself with certain members of the ranch board to talk about the finances of the organization. And other than that, that was about it.
All right. Mrs. Craven, anything tonight?
Yes, I attended a VRSD meeting, Ventura Regional Sanitation District meeting on August 7th for you, Mr. Mayor, when you were out of town. not a lot's changed at VRST since in the 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it's been since I left that board. I hope you're having a good time there. I also attended a Utilities Committee meeting on the 14th where we discussed the water conservation program and some of the things we're going to be doing. I attended 2 Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency meetings in August on the 15th and this afternoon. They are really revving up. August is a month when they're not supposed to meet at all. One of the things I'll bring you from today's meeting is that credits are going to be coming to the forefront, this discussion of credits. Right now, at the end of last month, or at the end of June, there was a total of 700,024,800 plus credits out there. And right now, we're not letting people earn or use credits, because if they used all of those, we wouldn't just have we'd probably have a dry aquifer, not just a salty one. So we're going to be deciding in the future what we'll be doing with credits. But before that, we're going to be talking about how we'll allow farmers to use water, whether they're going to be able to use historical allocation, this index thing, or that we developed a couple years ago, or just give them so much water per acre. We'll be discussing all that. And so we'll be really busy over there. The other thing I attended was on Sunday, the Pleasant Valley Historical Society Dones and Donias celebration, and congratulations, Mr. Mayor, for being named a new Done, and congratulations to Mr. Morgan's wife for being named a new Donia. And that's all.
Donald, do you have anything?
Certainly. On the meetings attended, VCTC, I attended since we met last, and I'm sure you're all aware of that Roadrunner was awarded the, what used to be called the Vista contract, inter-city contract for next 9 years. 9 years.
What's it called now?
Well, it's still Vista, but we're trying to get it away to being just the not having that Vista name. And the buses are ordered. You're going to see more of those pretty blue buses that are out there. So it's but it's nice to have one of our own local businesses be awarded that contract. Oversight Board on August the 6th, you all know what happened there because it happens the night before when we're here, the meeting before when we're here. VCOG Admin Committee planning our October meeting, and the Investment Committee meeting on the 25th, and that was when Mr. Little was gone, so I did my due diligence, Mr. Little. I made sure everything was okay for both of us. So.
I knew you would do that.
So we're doing fine, not earning a lot of interest, but no one else. I have just a couple of items. We tonight are going out to bid or asking for proposals on our annual slurry and paving plan. And I know we're behind. We didn't do much last year, and so we're making up for it. And I'm still predicting El Nino. I'm going to stick to that.
You stick to your guy.
You know what it looks like the next
If you
month?
watch the weather out there, it's acting like an El Nino is coming with the hurricanes in the Pacific and so forth. And anyway, how are we going to, get stuff in before the rainy season? Or do you feel comfortable that we're going to be able to move along with this now that school's back in session? And
We are actually planning to award a lot of construction contracts this winter, and we'll take credit for the El Nino.
oh, well, it's probably
We figured as long as we're busy, it has to rain.
Good.
No, we've had other times in the past where when construction occurs in the winter, the contractors just know that they watch the weather report and they just have to shut down when there's rain in the forecast and work around it. So we work that into the specs so that we don't have delays that we have to pay for. They just have to work through the weather conditions. And actually with an overlay, unless it's heavy rain, sometimes the rains actually help. They don't hurt, I should say, the curing process as the asphalt goes down.
Are we going to prioritize and get the worst ones out of the way first, at least, in case we don't get to them all?
No, usually we leave it to the contractor to schedule the work because they usually work in a moving their equipment through town rather than jumping around from one location to another based on some other type of priority. And if we were to dictate a different type of order of work, their costs would go up fairly dramatically.
And the use of rubberized asphalt will occur again, still on the arterials?
That is correct.
Okay. My other question, again, for Public Works, the on-ramp to the freeway and the both on-ramps, but particularly the on-ramp on Santa Rosa Road onto the 101 headed north, whose responsibility is the landscaping?
Well, the responsibility is Caltrans. It's their right-of-way, and Caltrans, for a long time, because of funding shortfalls, is taking a policy of very minimal maintenance. So we do have a permit that allows us to enter Caltrans right-of-way to help assist them with the landscaping. So if there's a particular issue that you want us to look into, we can probably work through that permit to take care of it.
If you don't mind doing that, on the on-ramp between the freeway and the on-ramp, so not along the high school, but on that little strip that's between the on-ramp and the freeway itself, it's got a lot of tumbleweeds in it and so forth. So once the wind starts to blow, we'll have tumbleweeds traveling down the highway. And it's not a big swatch of land because it's that little narrow triangle. So
Right. We'll take a look at that.
I appreciate that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Morgan, are you ready?
Yes, Your Honor. Well, with the exception of going to Alaska for 5 days and going to Monterey, it was a fairly busy month regardless. Number one had one ribbon cutting, one Eagle Scout Award. First Choppers and Coppers. Did any of you get a chance to go see that Choppers and Coppers event they had out here, their first one? The sheriff estimated while I was out there, there's about 2,000 people. There's a lot of kids and families there. Look at the Chopper, and they came landing, and so they could see them land and all this other stuff. That was, I think, a worthwhile event. We had Taste of Camarillo, which helped benefit, the whole community, because money is gathered from that thing, from Metal Arcs, goes into the community, into different organizations. And so they had a great event again. County Fair, we had that going on. But Taekwondo, that's Taekwondo tournament. You've heard me talk about this before. This gentleman has led this tournament from a little small over here at Los Altos to the high school, to the campus at Oxnard College, and now that's full. It's that big and it's that well attended. And so I would like to congratulate Master Shin on what he's been doing to help our community in promoting Taekwondo. Dons and Doñas, thank you for giving a comment, Charlotte. Donna really appreciated that award. Sister cities were here, and we had a chance, all of us, 3 or 4 of us had a chance to go to different sister city events. And, we're well received, and it's a very friendly atmosphere when we're there. So we enjoyed their company, and they hope some of us can go in February to their celebration so we can join them. Monterey, we talked about Monterey, and that was a 3-day thing that hit. I left at 9 o'clock in the evening, got there at 3 o'clock in the morning, and had to leave on Friday to get back here for Saturday's air show. Because the air show, I sat in the booth for 4 hours with staff, and I think staff gets killed over there, the heat with those light tents. But kind of give them a break best I could. We also had a Ranch House Foundation meeting for the yearly financial review meeting, and that was yesterday. And a lot of things came out of that meeting that maybe looked at in the future. But that's it.
There was several events that I attended to, several Eagle Scouts, ribbon cuttings. One was at the Burger King, obviously the Outland Sister City. I actually made some comments at the air show, which was real nice. It was an honor to be there. Mentioned our 50th and let them know for our events as well. And obviously I attended the Don and Donias, also a utilities committee meeting with Councilwoman Craven as well. So that was my events. And let's see, with that, I think we probably should talk or go into the magic words about the closed session, Counselor, at this point.
Yes, we can do that. It's a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2. Number of cases is 1.
Okay, so with that, we're going to recess, and everybody, we will be back at 6:30 tonight. So we will be back at 6:30. It's usually 7:30 tonight at 6:30, so everybody just, calendar that if you would. So with that, we're in recess. Everybody ready?
We're good?
All right, everybody. We're going to get this wonderful show on the road here. Welcome, everybody. First, let's do the roll call, please. Jeffrey?
Councilmember Craven.
Yeah, here.
Councilmember McDonald.
Here.
Councilmember Morgan.
Here.
Vice Mayor Little.
Here.
Mayor Kildee.
Here.
Commissioner Edsel.
Here.
Commissioner Boyce. Here. Commissioner Lusk.
Here.
Vice Chairman Davis.
Here.
Chairman Himmons.
Here.
Right. All right. Well, with that, we'll have the flag salute. I'm going to ask Councilwoman Craven if she would please lead us in the flag salute tonight.
Please rise, place your hand over your heart, and join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to open the regular city council meeting, as I've done, and I'm going to ask the Planning Commission if somebody would like to open up their meeting, please.
Yes, I will call to order the City of Camarillo joint meeting with the Planning Commission of August 27th, 2014.
All right. Let me get my pen here. So with that, I'm going to make a couple of comments here, a little protocol. First, when we did the flag salute and we have a full house, it certainly sounds really good and it sounds really different with everybody participating, so that's really great. We expect, obviously, as you all know, a very large crowd here tonight, so I'm going to go over just a couple of procedural points here, if I may. First is public safety. We brought in extra chairs tonight in anticipation of a large crowd. Be mindful that the chairs may not be moved at any time due to the regulations of the fire marshal. Also, there's 3 emergency exits here. Please take a moment to locate one of them in the unlikely event that you'll need to use them. Also, the center aisles and the back walls have to be kept clear. That's due to the fire code. We just can't have anybody standing on the side here due to the fire code. Seating, I realize that there are many more people here tonight than may have seating. However, everyone that's in this room needs to be seated here. And there's additional seats in the foyer, though, out there if you go through the door there. And people can leave the chambers. However, they may be replaced on a one-on-one basis. Speaking, and this is like really, really critical here. In order to speak to the City Council and Commission, please fill out a blue speaker form and turn it in to one of the staff members. Ms. Madeline is right there, or another staff member. They will in turn give them to the chairperson. At the appropriate time, I will call the names and you will have the opportunity to provide your testimony. We need to exercise the 3-minute rule. We've got a lot of people here. It's super important to hear from all of you. So I'm going to enforce the 3-minute rule very vigorously tonight. So I don't, have me cut you off. We don't want to do that. But with all these people here, we need to enforce this 3-minute. And what you might do, if you want to come up and use less than 3 minutes, that's totally fine too. Or if you want to agree with what the previous person has said, that would be fine too. That would cut the time off because we really want to hear from all of you. That's really, really important. And you can also fill out a pink nonverbal form too, and that will all get into the EIR. Actually, they're yellow tonight. The yellow form is a nonverbal, and your comments do get acknowledged as well. Okay. A couple other items here, too. The hearing is primarily for the purpose of hearing your comments on the recirculated draft EIR. I already mentioned it, that you're able to submit nonverbal cards, which is totally permissible, and it's totally a great idea to do that if you do not want to verbally be heard. In addition, is there going to be some pink nonverbal cards as well, or are we just going to do the yellow? We're just going to do the yellow tonight, too. Also, feel free to send emails or letters as you have, and continue to do that. They will be on record. All comments, verbal and written, will be responded into the final EIR. Meeting decorum, and this is really critical too. During the hearing process, we ask that you refrain from any applause or cheering or any other outburst. Everybody has his or her opinions on this matter, and we want to hear all of those. This will maintain a climate that will make everybody feel comfortable. And we have Commander Stewart here, too. I do not want to have him, I don't want to call him up here. So please don't force me to do that. So if you would please keep all of your outwardly comments or any of those, and you would refrain from that, it would make the night go real smooth. Let's talk a little bit about the order of the presentation. The following process will be followed. 1, a staff report will be presented with regard to the project and the CEQA process. 2nd, the council and commission will have an opportunity to ask questions. 3, I will then open the public hearing. 4, the applicant will have an opportunity to make his or her presentation. 5, the public will have an opportunity to make comments. I will read the names from the speaker cards in the order in which I received them. Staff and consultant will then take note of your comments and respond to your verbal and written comment will be included in the final EIR. 6, I'm going to close the public hearing and have an opportunity for comments by the council and the commission. After all the comments from the public have been received, then I will close the public hearing and receive comments from the council members and the planning commissioners. In conclusion, there will be no decision by the council or the commission this evening. It is possible that the council may give some direction to staff. I want to thank each and every one of you for your interest, and we will begin first tonight we are going to do public comments. There are comments on non-agenda items. I have 2 tonight. I'm going to call them up. And what I'll do when I open the public hearing, I'm going to do it kind of like a baseball trilogy. I'm going to call the first person up, and then the second person is going to be on deck, and the third person will be in the hole. So I ask you to line up, if you will, like that, and we can kind of move everybody through so everybody gets an opportunity to make a comment. So with that, on the public comment issue tonight, the first is a Matthew Lorimer. I didn't know there's Matthew. And Matt, again, 3 minutes. And if you would please adhere to that, I'd really appreciate it.
Okay.
Are you on? Let's see. I think you're on. Are you on there, Matt?
Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
you're good.
Okay. My name is Matthew Lorimer. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association at the Lamplighter. I'm going to read a letter here. To the city manager, Bruce Fing, a request for an outside investigation. On July 28, 2014, during the city council meeting at the public comments, I, Matt Lorimer, requested an investigation into the conduct of a council person. According to Ms. Terry Bray, she was approached twice. One time was in July 4, 2014, and another time at her job at Ventura Courthouse. During her visit at her work, this council person stated by saying to the residents at the Lamplighter Mobile Home Park would never see a rent control ordinance. He also commented on what another council person said. This behavior sends a message that the residents did not have a fair hearing on rent stabilization for the Lamplighter Mobile Home Park. This also is a form of intimidation on the people of Camarillo. I have not received any follow-up letters from the city manager or city staff on this investigation request. Mrs. Bray also stated that she has not received any written contact as of 26/2014. I'm Matt Lormer requesting the following information within 30 days of this letter. I'm requesting an outside investigation from a vendor or government agency not used by the city in the past or present. I'm requesting a written document stating if the city intends to investigate this matter, yes or no, plus the name of the investigating agency. What has the city done regarding the issues before the letter of August 26, 2014, and why? Has there not been no written contact? Again, this is concerning. I live at the mobile home park. We came here for a hearing a few months ago, and again, it was important that we had this event here, basically, but the idea that a council person is going outside the city of Camarillo and confronting somebody and saying that we're never going to pass it, and this has been going on for a month and a half, and I expect an investigation on it. I expect a return letter, and it's a very serious matter. This woman came to the city council meeting in tears. Nobody should be approached at work and have to be bullied because they feel that this wasn't right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next is a Roger Edmondson. And on deck is going to be Terry Bray.
Thank you. It's Robert, but that's close.
I'm sorry. What did I say?
Roger.
Roger, huh?
That's okay.
Well,
It's my writing.
okay, thank you.
My wife and I moved into Camarillo Springs about 3 years ago. One of the things we were looking at was the fact that nobody knew who we were and where we were because we were isolated from all the busy of the town. Over the last 3 years, we've been watching out our window and watching the top of the hill become more of a parking lot every afternoon. We're concerned about traffic. We have two ways of getting out of our park. One is taking Camarillo Springs Road, going Ridgeview, and over the little crooked bridge, everyone knows where that is, and over then to Poncho and back up to Camarillo Springs Road, Pleasant Valley. One evening, not too long ago, I was coming back from downtown, and I come back that way, Lewis, Pleasant Valley, Poncho, onto Ridgeview. No, it was Adolfo before Ridgeview. When I got around the corner on Adolfo, it was lined up bumper to bumper to the bridge. They couldn't get out onto Poncho to get out of the community. The freeway was a mess. If we had an emergency vehicle, need to get in and get one of us out, and believe me, we have a lot of folks that probably have needs of getting out like that. A lot of folks in the 80s and 90s, we wouldn't be able to get out because the two ways we have of ingressing or egressing would be blocked. And if you add another 2,500 homes and how many thousand of people and so forth, we're going to need a helicopter pad provided by the city to get us out of that community. That's about all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Robert. Terry Bray. Terry, you want to come down, please?
Good evening. I'm Terry Bray, president of the GSMOL Chapter 616 Lamplighter Mobile Home Park. And first of all, I'd like to state that I'm extremely proud of the residents of Camarillo. This room can't be seen on camera, but this room is packed. Your lobby is packed. Outside is packed. I had to park behind the laundromat to get a parking spot. So it's on, people. It's on. So good job. Regardless of your stance, it's the American way. Good job. Very proud. I have handed out tonight copies of the report that was invested by the residents of the Lamplighter Mobile Home Park and also Golden State Manufacturer Homeowners League into a rent stabilization ordinance expert and attorney, Mr. Kenneth Barr. Inside the folder that I've provided to you is a letter from the attorney from GSMOL in regards to the corporation and their stance on the rent stabilization need. And then also Mr. Barr's letter, and then also the substantiation of who Mr. Barr is. The items that are being challenged, let's say, for the comfort of the City Council to move forward on the rent stabilization are clearly addressed in Mr. Barr's documents. I think you'll find great satisfaction in the information that you get and look forward to hearing clarifications as to the progress of moving forward on the stabilization or the good arguments in regards to why you would not want to proceed. Last week on Tuesday, myself, Mr. Lorimer, some other members of the mobile home park met with the city manager, Mr. Bruce Feng. That was on Tuesday, thinking it was going to be a meeting of about an hour or so, and it lasted, I think, a little over 4 hours. And that also included the president of IPG, who owns Lamplighter Mobile Home Park. Mr. Feng had asked for paperwork or substantiating documents in regards to the ordinances in Modesto and Marina. And the response from Mr. Bruce Stanton, the attorney for GSMOL, is that since those ordinances have never been challenged, they're presumed to be legal. There are no documents to provide in regards to what you were asking for. That's on the inside of the folder that you have. At this time, I am confirming what Mr. Lorimer stated, that I have not been contacted by the city in regards to the councilman who approached me twice telling me that you've already made decisions that the ordinance is not going to take place. I am at this time requesting written response as to what disciplinary action is being taken place in regards to those actions or what will be coming up in the future. I did look into the Brown Act, and they are clear violations of the Brown Act, that decisions outside this public body that you've been voted into are not allowed. And that's what I was told had already taken place.
Thank you very much for your comments, Terry. Really appreciate it. Okay, next, it's the Conejo Creek Specific Plan and Recirculated Draft Environmental Impact Report. We're going to have a staff report. Mr. Dave Norman, would you like to kick this off, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This evening will be a public hearing presentation on the recirculated draft EIR for the proposed Conejo Creek Specific Plan. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to gather public comment on the recirculated draft EIR, and the comment period ends September 20th, 2014. In addition to verbal comments this evening, email comments can be sent to this email address. This email address will also appear at the end of the presentation. In accordance with CEQA, we request that comments tonight be limited to the recirculated draft EIR. The recirculated draft EIR is a revision of the draft EIR sections on project description, agricultural resources, biological resources, cultural resources, hydrology and water quality, land use, noise, and traffic circulation. This hearing is not intended to be a debate about the project, but rather an opportunity for the public, the City Council, and the Planning Commission to comment on the adequacy of the EIR in terms of describing the proposed project's environmental effects and proposing mitigation for such impacts. Questions will not be answered this evening, but will be responded to in writing as part of the response to comments that will be published in the final EIR. The draft EIR, the recirculated draft EIR, plus responses to comments for the original draft EIR and the recirculated draft EIR, when combined, become the final EIR. This will be important to remember as we go through the presentation, and it'll be reiterated several times. This is an important point that will again be repeated when we hear from the Assistant City Attorney. Certification of the EIR and consideration of project approval are separate processes. Certification of the EIR does not approve the project, and we'll amplify that later on. As was stated earlier, no decisions for or against certification of the EIR or for or against approval of the proposed project will be made this evening. It's also important to note that this is the first time that the City Council will have had any hearing on the draft EIR for this project. The Planning Commission has had 2 prior hearings in 2012, but this is, in fact, the first time the City Council will have heard it. Tonight's presentation will include a history of the general plan amendment referral, and this will be presented by someone familiar to you, the former Director of Community Development, Bob Burrow, who is now a consultant with the city. Second will be a review of the recirculated draft EIR presented by Josh Janowitz, Senior Program Manager for Rincon Consultants, who has been working on the draft EIR. Finally, there will be an overview of the remaining EIR process provided by Don Davis, Assistant City Attorney. Now I'll bring up Bob Burrow, who will take you through an overview of the project.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the City Council, members of the Planning Commission. I've been asked to give you a little bit of the context of the project and the history of this so that as you consider the draft recirculated EIR, that you'll have familiarity with what's described in the project description, which is then used for the individual analyses for the sections in the EIR. As described in the project description, the project area contains 895 acres. This includes the 740-acre specific plan area, plus the area that has been also studied, that southerly section. We'll show you that on a location map as well, since it does include areas that's described for the proposed channel improvements. The specific plan area for the 740 acres is part of the Camarillo curb boundary, and majority of the property is within the city limits. There is the larger Ador dairy site, which is not in the city limits along the westerly side. Just for purposes of specific plan, that's an opportunity to study an area, to consider coordinated land use planning, circulation, design standards, and all those things, so that if an area is to be considered for conversion to a different land use, that you'll have an understanding as to how it's going to occur, how it's going to be implemented, and if there's a timing mechanism involved as well. This property does include 5 separate property owners. They petitioned the city for consideration of an amendment, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And the amendment that's under consideration would be an amendment to various sections of the city's general plan. That's the long-range master plan for the city, and that could include things such as the land use element, circulation element, open space element, and recreation elements. This area here shows the specific plan area, and everybody is generally familiar with the area that it's in the southeast portion of town. It includes the 5 acres, 5 property ownerships. To the north is Mission Oaks area. Directly along here is the 101 Ventura Freeway. Camarillo Springs is located to the south, southeast. To the south is the Pleasant Valley area outside the city limits. The property that we've talked about in terms of not being within the city but within the curb boundary is located there. The curb boundary runs generally along Pleasant Valley Road, and then south along the creek, and then along the city limits lines along here. That's the area under the city SOAR that defines the area that's for the Camarillo Urban Restriction Boundary Area. If the project were to proceed, the area would require a sphere amendment and annexation of that westerly portion. Some of the other context for the location includes the Adams Industrial Park in the center portion, and then you have the Woodside Greens and Village at the Park areas up to the northwest of the area. The area is bounded on the west by Cayugas Creek, and then the Conejo Creek runs along this easterly side and then continues south along here. This additional study area has been added to the impact analysis, not that it's part of the specific plan, but the project description defines it that it's being studied because of the potential impacts associated with the Conejo Creek bypass channel. So these slides show some of the existing context of the property. Most of the property is, as you know, under agricultural production. There is the industrial area within the center portion of it, and there's other residential areas to the east at Camarillo Springs and to the west, as we've talked about. The city has its reclamation plant at the southeast portion of the site, right about there, and also owns the adjoining property as well. The Ador Dairy is located on the westerly portion. And as I mentioned, the Conejo Creek and the Callegas Creek form the easterly, southerly, and westerly boundaries of the area. The project, as proposed, proposes up to 2,500 residential units on roughly 300 acres and includes low-density, low-medium, and medium-density residential uses. There are approximately 220 acres of open space uses. This includes certain recreation areas, the creek areas, and other uses as described in the specific plan. There's a 14-acre school site and approximately 100 acres proposed for industrial uses, which have been analyzed at up to 1,300,000 square feet. Additionally, there's 62 acres that have been defined as office, retail, and mixed uses for another approximately 400,000 square feet, and then 33 acres that are defined for arterial roadways, the extension of Ridgeview, and other collector streets. This is the proposed plan that is within the draft specific plan. And you also see within the environmental impact analysis. That's what's being considered under the analysis, so that you would have all the information contained within the document relative to the environmental impacts, and shows the mix of residential, including single-family, multifamily uses, the commercial, retail, industrial areas, and the open space areas. Again, the freeway runs along the north side here, Pleasant Valley Road runs here, Callegas Creek here. Conejo Creek runs up along through here. This is the land use plan, and the specific plan also addresses all those other aspects that I mentioned. A bit of the history. The property owners did petition the city in December of 2006. The city did consider the amendment request and did authorize that the project could be studied and brought back with the appropriate materials, one of those being the EIR. There was a scoping meeting on the environmental impact report in order to define what context, what sections need to be studied back in November of 2009. And this is the purpose for the public to provide input as well as other agencies to identify what sections would need to be studied. The city contracted with Rincon Consultants to prepare the environmental impact report, and using the scoping of the NOP, did proceed with the preparation of the EIR. And Josh will go into further details with regard to that. But as Dave has indicated, in 2012, the draft EIR was released for public comment, along with the specific plan. Those documents have been available for public review and input. And there was a hearing held in September of 2012, and then was continued to December of 2012. After receiving all of the information, it was felt that there would be sections that needed to be expanded on, and Josh will review those in reviewing the recirculated draft EIR. And those sections were then available and circulated as we speak. So the draft EIR is currently under review. As Dave's indicated, this is the first time the council's had an opportunity to consider it, and the Planning Commission did have the meetings on the original draft. Response to the comments for the recirculated draft EIR will be included as part of the final EIR. That would be, again, as Dave's indicated, the draft sections, response to comments, and then those will be presented at public hearings before the Planning Commission and the City Council to determine whether or not those documents meet the requirements for certification. Action on the general plan amendment and specific plan can only be taken after the EIR is certified. You, as the policymakers, decision makers, need to have all of the information available as required by CEQA and as required by other city policy documents. Part of that is that there would also be included a policy analysis, which would include a discussion of the public benefits and needs analysis, other policy analyses, including the general plan policies. There's also, the City Council directed that as this area is studied, as we've done in other specific plans, such as Village at the Park and so forth, that an economic impact analysis would be necessary, as well as a review of the alternatives. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Josh Janowitz with Rincon Consultants to take you through the recirculated draft EIR.
Thanks, Bob. Good evening, everyone. Members of the public, planning commissioners, city council, and staff. Again, Josh Janowitz, Rincon Consultants. I'll begin with a bit of context with respect to the original draft EIR sections. As you can see, I think as Bob mentioned, we began in November of 2009 preparing this document. For the better part of 3 years, we worked with the city and other responsible and trustee agencies to prepare the draft EIR, which was released in July of 2012. And you can see we analyzed every issue that is required under the California Environmental Quality Act. Some of the highlights obviously included aesthetics, biological resources, greenhouse gases, hydrology, traffic, and alternatives. Just provide a brief summary of the original draft EIR impacts. There were Class 1 impacts, which are impacts that are considered significant and unavoidable, identified for aesthetics, agriculture, cultural resources, land use and planning, noise, and traffic and circulation. All the remaining impacts were considered Class 2 or Class 3 impacts. And just for the community and staff and the decision makers, Class 2 impacts are considered less than significant after mitigation. Class 3 impacts are considered less than significant and thus require no mitigation. There were 61 mitigation measures included in the original draft EIR that reduce the Class 2 impacts to less than significant levels. There were 4 alternatives considered as part of the project. Those alternatives considered include the no project alternative, a southbound US 101 hook ramp alternative, the reduced density alternative, and a cluster development alternative. After our analysis, we determined that the no project alternative was considered environmentally superior.
Pretty obvious, isn't it?
The city received, after going through the public review comment period, which I believe was 60 days, we received 55 comment letters on the project, 20 letters from public agencies, 35 letters from individuals or interest groups, and over 500 comments total, all considered. The major themes included questions about project boundaries and clarifications about how the project was described. As Bob mentioned earlier, there is a proposed specific plan boundary, and there's also an additional area to the south that was considered as part of the draft EIR. However, there were some updates made to the graphics in the draft EIR to ensure that those boundaries were more clearly communicated. The primary comment on agricultural resources was obviously questions about the conversion of agricultural land and also questions about the approach with regard to mitigation. So there was some significant analysis done to enhance those 2 discussion topics under agricultural resources. With respect to biological resources, questions about survey dates, the relationship of hydrology, and also biological habitat present both within the mountain areas to the east and also within the Conejo and Cayugas Creeks that form the project's western and eastern boundaries. Hydrology and water quality, primary concerns were related to pre- and post-development runoff volumes associated with the project. Also questions about the configuration of the bypass channel. Continuing with respect to land use, there was a request made to consider various county policies that might apply to the areas located outside of the city boundaries. With respect to noise, the Navy flight patterns and also the the various sort of protective zones that the Navy has put in place were brought up as topics of discussion. We'll go through a little bit more some of the supplemental information we provided as part of the final EIR later in the presentation, but there was some additional analysis that was included in the recirculated portion. Traffic, obviously a big issue. The adequacy of the study area was brought up as a concern. Obviously, the 101 freeway impacts were also an area of major concern. And obviously, more recently, water supply has risen to the top or towards the top as a major issue in Camarillo and throughout Ventura County. This was identified back in 2009, was considered in the 2012 draft, and will be considered throughout the remaining portions of this project. Again, why recirculate? The primary reason is when you have significant new information that's added to an EIR, the goal of the recirculation program is to involve the public and the decision makers in the review process and to solicit additional public comments. So based on the issues that I described, staff and the Rincon Consultants has provided or completed some additional environmental analysis, quite a bit of additional environmental analysis that's presented before everyone this evening as part of the recirculated draft EIR. We're nearing, I think we're sort of in the middle of the public review comment period, so we are actively soliciting comments from the public and any concerned agencies or decision-making bodies. We will consider, as we mentioned earlier, both written and verbal comments as part of the response to comments, and those will again be presented to the public as part of future presentations. We touched on this, but the recirculated draft EIR sections will go through sort of one by one, but project description, agricultural resources, biological resources, cultural, hydrology, water quality, land use, noise, and traffic and circulation were addressed as part of the recirculated document. We'll quickly hit the highlights of the recirculated sections. I mentioned earlier in my presentation that we did try to clarify the project area and sort of separate out the overall project area, which is 895 acres, from the actual specific plan area. So there were updated exhibits and there's updated text in the recirculated draft document that attempt to provide a more clear explanation of the project configuration. The applicant voluntarily modified the project description to include the preservation of the northern rock outcrop. As I think everyone knows, there are two pretty significant outcrops, for lack of a better term, located in the western portions of the site. The original project description included just preservation of the southern outcrop. The project description was revised, however, during the final EIR preparation stage to also preserve the northern knoll. So the exhibits were revised and the text was modified in the project description to reflect that. Also, LAFCO requested a more detailed discussion of the reorganization process so that there's some text in the recirculated document that attempts to clarify that process. Agricultural resources, again, not much change there with respect to the conclusion as to whether or not impacts would be significant. Impacts remain significant and unavoidable. Our main goal, though, was to consider alternative approaches to mitigation, primarily conservation of a similar amount of acreage within Ventura County and beyond. And so Rincon Consultants completed actually quite a bit of analysis to determine the potential feasibility of requiring the recordation of conservation easements on land that's similar to what the proposed project would convert. Ultimately, it was determined that just based on the state of the practice, the conservation practice here in Ventura County, that there really wasn't a comprehensive program in place to allow conservation of approximately 695 acres of agricultural land in a reasonable time frame. Based on that, we did include some other mitigation measures that still tries to promote community-supported agricultural programs here in the city. Nevertheless, impacts remain significant and unavoidable. Biological resources, a steelhead was identified by the Department of Fish and Wildlife in April 2003. So Rincon Consultants provided a much more comprehensive discussion on the potential for steelhead to essentially thrive in Conejo and Callegas Creeks. So that information was taken from information gathered by the National Marine Fisheries Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and also from recent steelhead surveys that were completed in Conejo Creek by city consultants in 2013 and 2014. We also included a number of additional mitigation measures and modified a number of mitigation measures to ensure that this issue is dealt with as part of the mitigation program. Impacts to biological resources remain less than significant after mitigation, primarily based on the modification to the mitigation measures, and also because the applicant now proposes to preserve both rock outcrops, which does contain a fair amount of significant habitat. Cultural resources, essentially, the main change here was that, again, the project applicant voluntarily proposed to preserve all the historic buildings in place and renovate them as part of the project, whereas before they were proposing to remove some of the structures as the project moved forward. So as a result of that preservation in place strategy, the impacts were reduced from Class 1, significant and unavoidable, to Class 2, less than significant after mitigation. Hydrology and water quality, again, a big issue based on the proposed flood control improvements. We included a summary of a large amount of additional technical data that the applicant's team prepared and that the city staff reviewed, things like pre and post development, runoff volumes, the feasibility, channel bed erosion and scour based on technical studies that were prepared, discussion of best management practices to ensure that the project complies with the new Ventura County MS4 regulations. So all of those technical documents were summarized and mitigation was included in this revised section, and impacts would remain less than significant after mitigation. Land use, SCAG prepares updated regional transportation plans and sustainable communities plans on a regular basis. We had a situation where when the document was originally prepared in 2009, the 2008 regional comprehensive plan goals applied. In the final EIR preparation stage, they released the updated 2012 RTP. So all those new policies that apply to the project were rolled into the recirculated land use section, and a statement of consistency was provided. The key issue here, impacts with respect to the conversion of agriculture, which is a policy that's included in the city's general plan, remains significant and unavoidable. That conclusion did not change. The consistency with some of the SCAG policies based on the need to provide a more sustainable or mixed-use type of project that converted from Class 3 to Class 2, again, less than significant after you introduce the mitigation measures that are proposed. Noise, again, a concern because of the adjacency of the Point Mugu Navy base, and also because of the Camarillo Airport, and because of the traffic that is conveyed along the 101 freeway and the surface streets within the city. The updated section includes additional noise monitoring to establish baseline conditions. We also attempt to calculate the post-development noise conditions along all the major arterials, and also attempt to categorize the noise levels that would be experienced in the homes that front the various roadways surrounding the project. So those new impacts and mitigation measures were characterized in the noise section. With respect to the impacts on some of the residential dwellings that exist along Pleasant Valley Road, those impacts would remain significant and unavoidable, despite the fact that we did revise some of the mitigation measures to more clearly convey a program for mitigation. Traffic and circulation, the major upgrade or update to this section involved incorporating an applicant proposed sort of general northbound 101 general purpose lane, which is different from the original auxiliary lane that was proposed. The difference between the two is the auxiliary lane that was proposed as a mitigation measure on the northbound side of the 101 freeway was sort of a segmented approach. In other words, they would add a lane near each on and off ramp. The general purpose lane that was put forth as another project-related or mitigation measure incorporated into the project is actually a continuous northbound freeway lane that extends from east of the Pleasant Valley, Santa Rosa Road off-ramp to west of Las Posas Road. So the new analysis considered the integration of that significant freeway improvement as a mitigation measure. I can say that essentially the change was it did incrementally improve the operational capacity of the US 101 freeway on the northbound side. The existing condition under existing and cumulative plus project conditions, the US 101 freeway mainland operates at LOSF, which is essentially a extremely congested condition. The proposed integration of the northbound general purpose lane, however, would reduce the impacts to within the C and D range. So there is an incremental improvement. However, impacts were still considered significant and unavoidable even after the proposed mitigation measures. And that concludes my presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Don Davis to wrap things up. Thank you.
Evening, Mayor, council members, commissioners, and members of the public. You can breathe easier. I am not going to give an overview of the entire EIR process, and also we're pretty far into it, and so what I'm going to just cover is where we need to go from here. As you can see where we are here, we're pretty close to the end, even though maybe to many people it doesn't feel like it. But as staff has indicated, this is a comment evening. Comments will be responded to, and then the final EIR will be prepared, released, and then reviewed for adequacy. So my comments tonight will just go to those points. Again, just to kind of step back and to remind everybody, because it's been a couple years now since we gathered here and reviewed a draft EIR, the purpose of CEQA, the overriding purpose, is obviously protection of the environment by avoiding or minimizing environmental damage. How is that done? It's done through a disclosure document, or in this case, an EIR, which is essentially an informational document. It is intended to provide our decision makers, both the Planning Commission and the City Council, information about this project and what the environmental consequences would be, and also to provide public as to why decisions were made, why certain mitigation was imposed or not imposed in some cases. Okay. For the members of the public tonight, I would encourage them to take a look at pages 4 and 5 of the staff report if they have that. I gave a lot of tips about comments. We've received a number of comments, as Mr. Janowicz has pointed out. Many have been very detailed, and those are helpful, and staff has been working hard with Rincon to respond to those comments. But the review is to allow people to share expertise, and it can be both lay and technical, to check accuracy of documents, to detect omissions, obviously to discover public concerns, too. That's a more generalized type of purpose, and then also obviously to look at counterproposals or potential alternatives, which is also a requirement of the document itself. When the responses come out, and this is kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but the city does have an obligation to respond to all the written comments. And with that, I also want to remind the public, if they're speaking tonight, that's an oral comment, and that's important, but they would need to submit written comments in order for Rincon to be responding to them. So just a reminder about that, to get your written comments in within the time period. Once those comments are in on the recirculated draft, again, we will go through another round of responses, and we have various obligations here as a lead agency on this project to respond thoroughly, to not be conclusory, to again, provide as much information or clear responses to the comments as we can, keeping in mind, though, that CEQA is not a perfection kind of experience, that we don't have to provide every kind of test, perform every kind of study, look at every issue. We respond to comments about potentially significant effects on the environment. To repeat the theme raised earlier tonight, that certification is different from approval of the project. It comes before approving or acting on the project. We certify compliance with CEQA. And there are basically 3 steps in doing it. And again, when we get to a later portion of the process, we'll provide more detail on it. But in general, it's have you reviewed and considered the document? Does it reflect your independent judgment? And is it completed in compliance with CEQA? Now, obviously, there can be a lot of debate about what does compliance with CEQA mean and in terms of adequacy, but to kind of